Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Album versus Album. So, I've gotten quite a few requests to do an album versus album on Megadeth. So, I decided to take what I consider to be their two most iconic albums and pit them against each other. And so I threw up a poll on my social media. Once again, if you weren't able to participate, if you look down in the video description below, you'll see the links to all of my social media accounts, and I do a poll on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And then I take the results, and I make this video, and we talk about the two albums, compare them, and we'll see which one comes out on top. Today, we're talking about the two absolutely classic Megadeth albums, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying, and Rust in Peace. Which one of these two iconic metal albums comes out on top? Let's find out. Once again, everyone, this is just for fun. Sometimes I see comments like, why do we have to choose between albums? Or, this is so tough, I'm just going to choose both. Well, then your vote doesn't fucking count. This is for fun, folks. Anyway, so first, let's talk about Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? This was released in 1986, the second Megadeth album, produced by Randy Burns, and cover art, Ed Repka, a classic metal artist, cover artist at this point. So many great things about this album. It has a very iconic quality. So not just the album artwork. The album artwork is just one of those albums that over the years has just grown to be this super iconic, just metal art. It's just great. And then, of course, you've got the tracks. Like, what tracks are on here? Obviously, you got the ones they made videos for, Wake Up Dead and Peace Sells. But you got a lot of other great shit on here. But most importantly, the thing, and I think I brought this up when we were talking about this album on my Megadeth ranking, I like how on this album, they didn't really stick to traditional song structures. It doesn't seem like the songs go where you think they might go. And sometimes it's literally, like in the case of Wake Up Dead, it's mostly an instrumental with just some sort of spoken word shit at the beginning and then at the end a little bit. But that's it. But the song doesn't seem like it needs anything else. So it's kind of like they let these songs just sort of become what they were and are. And I just think it's fucking great. Another really important thing to point out about this album, especially when listening to it next to Rust in Peace, this album's pretty slow. There's a lot of slower and mid-tempo stuff on this album, which is really funny to me because people like to hold up albums like this. Like, I miss the old school thrash where everything was 200 miles an hour the whole time. Maybe you should go back and listen to these fucking records, because this shit, for the most part, isn't very fast. There's a lot of fast guitar work, and there's a lot of fucking killer riffs, but it really does show them branching out when you compare this album to their debut album. But anyway, this album is a fucking classic. It's the last album with Gar Samuelson and Chris Poland as drums and guitar, respectively, and it's one of those albums that just stands up there with iconic metal albums. So I'm assuming that this would be a lot of people's favorites because it's just one of those albums that's just become, metal royalty, I guess. Anyway, so now let's move on. Rust in Peace. Once again, more iconic metal artwork by Ed Repka. Came out in 1990. It was produced by Mike Klink. And it is, in my opinion, one of the most perfect metal albums ever made. Look at the track listing. Every track is killer, but obviously the video songs here, Holy Wars and Hangar 18, two of the best metal songs ever written, in my opinion. But this album doesn't let up. It is technical and fast and a little bit progressive. Honestly, when you hold up this album next to Peace Sells, But Who's Buying, technically, I don't think you can argue that this is a superior album. That one, I say that one, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying, may have more of an important role when it comes to metal and thrash metal and things like that. But I think this is the album, especially with people in metal bands, they would probably say this is a lot more influential because, I mean, you hear this fucking album, why wouldn't you want your band to sound this fucking great? Anyway, it's also the first album with Nick Menza and Marty Friedman, which started the first sort of solid lineup for Megadeth for many years. And I don't really need to say much more about it. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. I did a video all just talking about this fucking record. So obviously you know out of these two where my vote lies. So when you put them next to each other, I mean, artwork-wise, it's pretty fucking close. But track listing on here, just amazing songs. This one, the production's not as good as on this one, in my opinion. This also has I Ain't Superstitious, which it's fine, but they could have just left it out and put another actual Megadeth song on here. So, in my opinion, Megadeth wins the battle between these two. Did I just say Megadeth? Rustin. Yeah, you know what? Fuck that. Megadeth wins. Anyway, Rust in Peace wins, in my opinion. But let's see how the public out there decided to vote. So, over on Instagram, Rust in Peace wins with 53% of the vote. That's 47 votes for Rust in Peace and 41 votes for Peace Sells But Who's Buying. Over on Facebook, Rust in Peace wins with 54% of the vote. That's 79 votes for Rust in Peace and 68 votes for Peace Sells. So both of these, that's not really that far away. It's pretty close. And then over on Twitter, Rust in Peace wins with 65% of the vote. Once again, their fucking math is goddamn weird. Anyway, I'm going to say that's 17 votes for Rust in Peace and 9 votes for Peace Sells But Who's Buying, which equals a total of 143 plus 144 votes for Rust in Peace and 118 for Peace Sells But Who's Buying. So there you have it. According to all of you out there who voted and myself, the winner is Rust in Peace. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised because I did think that the weight of iconic metal that Peace Sells holds, I thought that would get a lot more love, but apparently there's a lot more of you that agree with me on this one. So there you have it. Rust in Peace, the winner of this week's Album versus Album. What do you think? Once again, please keep the suggestions and subscriptions. Keep subscribing, but also keep the suggestions coming in. Because I do want to branch out a little bit. I think my next Album versus Album might step out of the metal world a little bit and maybe into more of a hard rock territory. Just to, throw things, whatever. What are words? What are words for when no one listens anymore? Anyway, name that tune. Anyway, so thank you for joining me for this week's Album versus Album, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye.